Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. Tonight, BC Attorney General Nikki Sharma is here to discuss how the province intends to compel social media companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Tinder to comply with new image sharing laws. But first, with municipalities across BC allowing adults to drink alcohol in parks, beaches, and other public spaces, maybe we should re-familiarize ourselves with public intoxication laws just so we don't wind up in the drunk tank this summer. So let's kick things off with my counterpart on the Soapbox Social panel, which you can find on CBC Radio's On the Coast with Gloria Makarenko, one of BC's most high-profile criminal defense lawyers representing Acumen Law. She is Kyla Lee, and this is Kyla's Court. Hi, Kyla.
Hi, Mo.
So nice to see you as always.
Yeah, I can't believe we're not doing this segment on a beach with a beer.
I know, right? Budget constraints, but maybe next time. Maybe next time we'll do it at a different location.
Love it.
I got to ask you, obviously in Vancouver, this is a big issue where now you can drink in some public beaches and public parks. Different municipalities have also allowed this. But when it comes to public intoxication, you can't actually be drunk in public, right?
Yes. So you're allowed to have a couple drinks in these permissible areas that municipalities have designated for public drinking, but you cannot have so many drinks that you end up at the point of intoxication. And legally, intoxication is a little bit difficult to define.
But that's what I mean. Like, so who determines if you're publicly intoxicated?
Basically, the police officer that might arrest you, they're going to look at you. They're going to assess your speech, your manner of walking. Is your face flushed? Are you, glossy-eyed? Do you reek of liquor? And are you behaving badly? If you're doing those things that are attracting attention to yourself, you're probably going to end up arrested for public intoxication.
Now, would they administer a breathalyzer like they would, like, if you were driving?
No, they don't have the power to do a breathalyzer to somebody who's not driving or hasn't been recently driving a car. So they just do it based on their assessment of your physical condition, which can lead to a lot of concerns for people, for example, who may present as intoxicated because they're in medical distress, because they're disabled and they have symptoms that mimic those of intoxication.
Right. And so this is where it gets complicated, right? Like there's no particular checklist or criteria that has to be met in order to determine public intoxication.
No, and what we hear a lot from police officers in court is, I deal with intoxicated people every day in the course of my work, so I'm capable of recognizing somebody who's intoxicated.
Okay.
But at the same time, we see police officers getting it wrong a lot. Thankfully, most people don't end up charged with public intoxication. They just end up, spending a night at the police station or a couple hours until they get a sober ride home.
Right. Okay. So it's not common that you would actually face criminal charges.
No, you wouldn't face criminal charges. It's not a criminal offense. It's a provincial offense. So you can get a fine. If it was really extreme, theoretically, you could go to jail for up to 6 months. I don't think that that's ever happened. Usually it's sleep it off, released when you're sober.
Is it weird to you that increasingly we can drink more in different public spaces? However, you can't be drunk in public?
It is odd, but it makes sense. I mean, there's a safety risk that goes along with people being drunk, either that they will cause harm to themselves or cause harm to other people. And also drunk people in public areas that lots of people use are kind of a nuisance.
They are annoying. This is very true. I have a question for you. Let's say you're having a few drinks at a beach and you have a few drinks and you still have half a drink left in your red Solo cup. And you and your friends are now going to walk over to a plaza where drinking in public is also allowed. In the transportation of that drink, that red Solo cup which has some alcohol in it, is that legal? Like, are you allowed to do that?
No, you're not allowed to transport open liquor except in a motor vehicle if it's not accessible to the driver and passengers.
Okay.
In public.
Okay, so wait, if you're a passenger in a car, you can drink open liquor, no problem.
No, you can you can have open liquor containers in a car if they're not accessible to the passenger or the driver. Okay. Sorry, Mo.
Okay, got it. And even
see the excitement.
Got it. I was just trying to figure out the law here. I'm trying to weasel my way around it. And also, so to be clear, you can't transport that red Solo cup or that open beer bottle from place to place, even if you don't drink in between.
Yeah, you can't possess open liquor containers in public places except where there's exceptions in place.
Okay, this is very interesting. On the topic of transportation, we are seeing more and more self-driving cars and self-driving vehicles. Can your self-driving car be a designated driver?
No, it cannot. In fact, the BC government just passed legislation to deal with self-driving vehicles, and we now have bans on self-driving cars in British Columbia.
Wholesale?
Wholesale.
Whether you're sober,
drunk.
Okay.
Drunk. Yeah, wholesale bans on self-driving features of cars, like things that are short of cruise control. Are not allowed in British Columbia. We will see regulations in the future, but I don't anticipate that the government is ever going to let people just let your car be the DD.
Okay, but is that a technology thing? Like the technology hasn't reached the capacity to, fully in a sentient way transport you from A to B?
Well, certainly the technology is not there yet. But the other concern is there are situations in which the technology is not going to be able to make the moral decision. And there's also the risk that with any technology, no matter how advanced it is, it could fail. And at that point, you need to be aware, you need to be able to be capable of taking over the controls of the car, preventing an accident and driving safely. And if you're drunk and you're in the driver's seat, you're not in a position to do that.
That's fair. Setting aside motor vehicles, what about things like bikes or cycles? Are you allowed to cycle if you're legally drunk, or would be considered drunk if you were driving a vehicle?
Well, no, because you would be intoxicated in a public place.
Oh, okay.
There are also provisions of the Motor Vehicle Act that apply to bicycles the same as they would apply to cars. So other than a few specific exceptions, all of the laws under the BC Motor Vehicle Act also apply to people operating bicycles. So there is sort of a general prohibition on cycling without due care and attention or without reasonable consideration, which would encompass drunk cycling.
Fair enough. And I do think it deserves emphasis. When you can drink in public, there's only permissible areas where you can drink. It's not everywhere in public in Vancouver or Greater Vancouver, right?
Yes, it has to be an area that's been enacted by a bylaw or under the park board regulations under the Vancouver Charter, or a private home, a care home that allows it, certain locations that are designated for the sale of liquor. Those are really the only places you can consume alcohol in public.
Well, thank you for clarifying this, Kyla. Always a pleasure.
No problem.
Folks, one of the most prominent criminal defense lawyers in British Columbia, she is Kyla Lee. Now stick around, because after some business, how will the government of BC compel tech companies from TikTok to OnlyFans to comply with the province's new laws to ensure that someone's intimate photos are not shared online without consent? BC Attorney General Nikki Sharma will be here to explain up next.